The streetlights flickered against the rain as I dragged my tired feet home. My whole body felt like it had been wrung out at work. My hands smelled faintly of oil and sweat, and all I wanted was to collapse next to my boy, maybe heat up leftovers, and forget the day. But then I heard it, crying. At first, I thought it was a storm. The rain beat hard on the rooftops and splashed against the gutters, making the night sound like it was sobbing with me. But then I caught again a high-pitched broken wail. I stopped walking. My heart thudded heavier than my footsteps. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sharp in the dark. No answer, just a cry, shaky and desperate. I followed the sound until I reached the bus stop at the corner. The shelter was cracked, one side missing its glass. And there, huddled under the broken roof, were two tiny figures. Kids. 2 kids, curled into each other like frightened animals. Their clothes clung to their bodies, soaked straight through, their hair plastered to their foreheads. One of them was whispering something to the other, but the words drowned in the storm. When they looked up at me, my chest tightened. Big, dark eyes, wide, scared. The kind of look that asked a question without words. Are you going to hurt us too? I froze. My boots stood heavy in the water, pooling at my feet. I wanted to look away, to keep walking, because my life was already too heavy, too broken. I was just a man barely holding my own world together. My son depended on me. My grief already swallowed most of me whole. And yet, I couldn't move. The smaller one coughed, and the sound sliced through me. I stepped closer, slowly, like they were wild animals ready to bolt. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." They pressed tighter into each other. The older one, I guess only by a year, put an arm around the other. A shield. Something inside me cracked. "You're freezing," I said, crouching down. My voice shook. "Where are your parents?" Silence. The rain filled the gap between us. "Do you live around here? Did someone leave you?" Still nothing. Just wide, scared eyes. Their lips trembled, teeth chattering. My hands hovered uselessly in the air. What was I doing? I couldn't even promise my own boy more than a leaky roof and noodles most nights. How could I promise anything to 2 strangers? I almost stood back up, almost turned around. But then one of them, the smaller one, reached out. His little fingers grabbed the sleeve of my jacket, clinging so tight my breath caught. That tiny hand felt like the heaviest weight I'd ever carried. I swallowed hard. "All right, okay." My words were more to myself than them. "You can't stay here. You'll get sick." The older one narrowed their eyes. Suspicious, brave, even in fear. "Where were you taking us?" The voice cracked, raw from cold. "Home," I said before I could think. The word slipped out, heavy and permanent. Home. My 1-bedroom apartment that barely fit me and my son. My half-broken life. I should have said the police station or somewhere safe. But the word home had already left my mouth, and it felt like I couldn't take it back. The older twin studied me, then slowly nodded. I took off my jacket and wrapped it around both of them. It barely covered their small bodies, but at least it was something. Their heads rested against each other, and I noticed, despite the storm, they finally stopped crying. I let out a shaky breath, standing. My mind screamed that I was insane, that this wasn't my responsibility, that I couldn't save everyone. But when I looked down at them, shivering under my jacket, all I could think was, maybe tonight I can save someone. I stretched out my hand. "Come on, let's get out of this rain." The smaller one took it. The older followed, still wary, still holding tight to their sibling. As I led them down the slick, empty street, water soaking through my boots, a quiet voice in the back of my head whispered, "Your life just changed forever." And deep down I knew it was true. Their little fingers clung to my sleeve as we walked, and the rain fell heavier with every step. My boots splashed through puddles, but all I could hear was the weak sound of coughing behind me. "Are you both all right?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The older twin answered, barely louder than the storm. "We're cold." I stopped under a flickering streetlight and crouched down. Their faces were pale, lips trembling blue. My jacket looked ridiculous on them, draped over their shoulders like a sagging tent. "Here," I said, pulling the fabric tighter around them. "It's not much, but it'll help until we get inside." The younger one whispered, Where are we going?" My throat tightened. "Home. To my son. To my broken little world." "Somewhere dry," I said instead. The older twin narrowed their eyes, suspicious but too tired to argue. I looked at their tiny hands gripping each other, so tightly it was like letting go meant death. That image stabbed something inside me, pulling memories I kept buried. Nights of holding my boy after his mother's funeral. Nights I thought we'd both shatter. Nights when no one reached out for me. No one pulled me out of the storm. I shook the thought off. This wasn't about me. "You hungry?" I asked, forcing a smile. Both heads nodded slowly. "Good," I said, "because I've got noodles waiting. Not fancy, but they'll fill you up." The younger one's eyes lit up for just a second before hiding behind the older twin again. I stood, motioning for them to follow. Their footsteps were soft splashes behind me. My hands trembled as I shoved them into my pockets. What was I doing? Bringing strangers into my house? I could barely pay bills. My son already needed more of me than I could give. And now I was dragging two shadows from the rain straight into our fragile world. But then I felt the tug at my sleeve again, the same tiny hand refusing to let go. Heavy, fragile, like trust or maybe desperation. I whispered under my breath, "Just for tonight." "Did you say something?" the older twin asked. I shook my head. "Nothing. Just keep close." They shuffled closer anyway. We walked in silence. Only the rain spoke, slapping against roofs and running down gutters. My chest burned with questions. Who were they? Why were they alone? Where was their family? But I couldn't ask yet. Their eyes already carried too much weight. When we turned the corner toward my apartment building, the younger one finally spoke again. "Do you have kids?" The question startled me. "Yeah," I said softly. "I've got a boy. He's about your age." They exchanged a glance, something unspoken passing between them. Then the older one asked, "Is he nice?" I chuckled under my breath. "Depends on the day. But yeah, he's a good kid." They nodded like that answer mattered more than anything else. We stopped at the cracked steps leading up to my building. I looked at them one last time. Two soaked, shaking kids clinging to each other like the world was ending. I thought of my wife, her voice echoing in my head. "Take care of our boy. Don't close your heart." I swallowed hard. "All right," I muttered, "just for tonight." I unlocked the door, and the warm air from the hallway hit us, carrying the faint smell of old carpet and boiled rice from a neighbor's dinner. The twins hesitated, still holding on to each other. "Go on," I urged. "It's safe." They stepped inside, small shoes squeaking against the floor. As I followed them up the stairs, my chest felt heavier with every step. I told myself it was only for a night. But deep down, I already knew I was lying. The hallway smelled like damp carpet and boiled rice as I led them upstairs. Their wet shoes squeaked against the steps, and my chest felt tighter with every creak of the railing. Just for tonight, I reminded myself. But the lies sat heavy in my throat. I unlocked the door, pushed it open, and the warm yellow light spilled into the hall. My boy was already awake, sitting cross-legged on the couch, waiting for me like he always did when I worked late. His eyes lit up when he saw me, then widened when he noticed the two small shadows behind me. "Dad!" His voice cracked. Who are they?" I closed the door, water dripping off my jacket onto the floor. "They're just kids who needed a place to stay tonight." He glanced at them, then at me. "Stay? Here." The twins hovered near the doorway, clinging to each other. Their clothes dripped puddles onto the floor. My son tilted his head. He was curious, but there was something sharper in his eyes, too. I sighed and motioned. "Shoes off. Couch is fine. It's warmer here than outside." The older twin hesitated, then gently tugged the younger one toward the couch. They sat pressed shoulder to shoulder, whispering words I couldn't catch. My son leaned close to me, whispering too. "Dad, are they staying?" Like forever? I rubbed my face with my hands. No, just tonight. He frowned. You sure? I nodded, but even I didn't believe myself. I went into the kitchen and filled a pot with water. The sound of it boiling filled the silence between the kids. My son came in, standing beside me. You're making noodles? He asked. Yeah, I said. 4 bowls. 4. He smirked, though his eyes kept darting to the living room. That's new. I stirred the pot, pretending not to notice the tremor in my hands. They looked hungry. Hungry, hungry, he said, like he understood something I didn't want to admit. When the noodles were ready, I carried the bowls out. The smell seemed to snap the twins awake. The younger one's eyes widened, and before I could set the bowls down, the older twin grabbed a spoon and pushed it into their sibling's hand. Careful, I said softly. It's hot. They nodded quickly, but the noodles disappeared faster than I could blink. My son sat across from them, slurping his own bowl slower, just watching. You eat like my dad, he finally said, grinning. The younger twin froze, noodles halfway to their mouth. Your dad? My boy pointed at me. Yeah, him. The twins glanced at me, then back at each other. I didn't say anything. I just kept eating, pretending my heart wasn't twisting. When the bowls were empty, I collected them. You too should rest. Couch is clean enough. I'll get blankets. The older twin shook their head quickly. We'll stay right here. Together? That's fine, I said. I pulled 2 old blankets from the closet. They wrapped themselves up like cocoons, still pressed side by side. Their eyes stayed open long after their bodies stopped shivering. My son tugged on my shirt. Dad, he whispered. They looked scared. Yeah, I said, my voice low. They do. He leaned against me, staring at them. Can we help them? I wanted to say no, to remind him this wasn't our problem, to tell him our lives were already hard enough. But the words never came. Instead, I said, just for tonight. We'll see what happens tomorrow. He nodded slowly, but the look in his eyes told me he didn't believe me either. Later, when the lights were off and the storm outside had quieted, I sat on the edge of my bed staring at the ceiling. My son's soft breathing came from his room. From the couch, I could hear the twins' whispers, broken, tired, but still clinging to each other like the world would vanish if they let go. And in the silence, I asked myself the question I've been avoiding. If I leave them tomorrow, who will take their hands when the rain comes again? I lay awake most of the night, listening to their whispers drift across the living room. My son slept soundly in his room, but the twins never settled completely. Every creak of the pipes, every gust of wind against the window, pulled a whimper from one of them. By morning, dark circles sat under their eyes. My son shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing his face. Dad, they didn't sleep, did they? Not much, I muttered, pouring hot water over instant coffee. The younger twin coughed softly, tucked deep into a blanket. The older one sat upright, arms wrapped around their sibling like a shield. I crouched down near them. You're safe here. No one's coming to hurt you. The older twin looked at me, lips pressed thin. People always say that. The word stung. I swallowed hard. I'm not people. I'm me. Silence. Then my son piped up, sitting cross-legged beside them. He means it. He always keeps his promises. Right, Dad? I forced a smile. Yeah, I try. The younger one's voice cracked. Do we have to leave? My stomach tightened. Just for tonight. That's what I told myself. But I couldn't bring myself to say it out loud. Instead, I asked, where would you even go? That question opened the floodgates. Their story spilled out in fragments, broken pieces of a puzzle too dark for kids their age. Their mom had left first. No note, no hug goodbye, just gone. Their dad stuck around for a while, but nights stretched longer, meals grew fewer, and the house turned colder. Then one day, he didn't come back at all. We waited, the older twin whispered. 2 days, then 3. No food, no lights, just waiting. My chest burned. I could almost feel their hunger, their silence. I remembered nights after my wife's funeral, me staring at empty cupboards, wondering if I'd failed my boy already. What happened after that? I asked gently. The younger twin wiped their nose with the back of their hand. A lady came. She said she'd call someone, but we ran. We didn't want to be split. My son frowned. Split? Like apart? Both twins nodded, terrified. Never, the older one said firmly. We stay together. Always. I sat back, gripping my knees so my hands wouldn't shake. Every word cut into me. Their pain mirrored mine in ways I didn't want to admit. They'd been carrying storms far heavier than I had, and I thought I was drowning. I cleared my throat. Listen, I can't promise I understand everything, but I get this. Family doesn't leave each other, not if they can help it. The younger twin looked at me like they wanted to believe. The older one just studied me, measuring my words. My son leaned closer to them. Dad doesn't lie. If he says something, he means it. I rubbed the back of my neck, guilt crawling under my skin, because deep down, I wasn't sure I could keep them. The system, the rules, they want to take over. Later that afternoon, when the kids dozed off on the couch, I stepped into the kitchen and dialed social services. My fingers shook as I tapped the numbers. A tired voice answered. Children's Services. How can I help you? I hesitated. Say it. Do the right thing. I found 2 kids. Twins. They were out in the rain last night. No adults. The worker's tone sharpened. And you brought them home? Yes. Sir, we need you to bring them to our office. We'll take it from there. I glanced at the couch. 2 small bodies curled under blankets, finally breathing steady. My son sat on the floor beside them, quietly sketching superheroes, keeping guard. My voice cracked. What happens if I do that? They'll be placed in temporary care until... Together? I interrupted. Not always guaranteed. My grip on the phone tightened. My heart pounded in my ears. The worker's voice faded into static as my mind screamed. I could hand them over, let the system do its job. But the thought of those kids waking up to strangers, split apart, losing the only piece of home they had left, it tore something in me wide open. I ended the call without another word. My hands shook as I set the phone down. My son peeked into the kitchen. Dad? What did they say? I forced a steady breath. They said it'll take time. Paperwork. He tilted his head. You're not going to let them take them, are you? I stared at him. Why do you ask that? Because I saw your face, he said simply. And because they look like us. Before. The truth in his words nearly broke me. Before, when grief had swallowed us whole, when I thought we'd never climb out, I crouched, pulling him close. I don't know what's going to happen, but I swear to you, I won't let them get hurt again. He nodded against my chest. Then they're ours. I looked over his shoulder at the couch. 2 small lives, already woven into ours. My mind argued money-space rules, but something deeper whispered louder. They're already yours. The worker's voice echoed in my head long after I hung up the phone. Not always guaranteed. That's why, 2 days later, I sat in a cramped office that smelled faintly of old paper and burnt coffee. The walls were dull gray, the kind that made you feel smaller just by looking at them. The twins sat close to me, hands in their laps, shoulders touching. My son sat on a chair beside them, frowning at the floor. Across the desk, the social worker flipped through forms. All right, sir, let's start with the basics. Employment. I cleared my throat. Mechanic. Full-time. Late shift sometimes. She scribbled notes. Income range. Enough to pay rent. I muttered. Her pen paused. She looked up. Do you have any savings? I shifted in my seat. A little. Not much. The twins glanced at me. Their eyes searched my face like they could hear the doubt in my voice. The worker nodded, unfazed. Living arrangements? How many bedrooms? 1. I admitted. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. And you already live with your biological son? Yes. So, 4 people in a 1-bedroom apartment. She tapped her pen against the desk. That will be noted. Each word hit me like a hammer. Too small, Too poor, too unprepared. I forced myself to ask, what happens if I can't meet all the requirements? The twins tensed. The older one's hand slid across the seat until it brushed mine. A second later, the younger one followed. Two small hands pressed against me like anchors, keeping me from drowning in shame. I gripped them back. The worker cleared her throat. If you're unable to provide adequate stability, the children will be placed in temporary foster care while we evaluate long-term options. My chest tightened. Foster care together? Not always guaranteed, she said, like the words meant nothing. I shook my head. No, you don't understand. They've already lost enough. Splitting them. Sir, she interrupted, voice calm but firm. I understand your feelings, but these decisions are based on policy, not emotion. Emotion, as if what sat beside me weren't flesh and blood, but just paperwork. My son finally spoke, his voice sharp. They're not paperwork. They're my brother and sister. The worker blinked at him, then at me. I set my jaw. He's right. The room fell silent. I could hear the tick of the clock on the wall, steady and cruel. Finally, the worker sighed, closing the folder. Look, no one is saying you don't care, but the system needs proof, income, space, consistency. If you're serious, you'll need to apply for guardianship. That means inspections, interviews, background checks. I nodded slowly, every word heavy on my chest. And if I pass all that, then we'll consider placement. Consider, not promise. I looked down at the twins. Their eyes were wide, scared, but their hands still held mine. I thought about the night I lost my wife, the moment I stood in the hospital hallway with my son in my arms, feeling like the world had ended. If someone had tried to take him then, rip apart what little I had left, I wouldn't have survived. Now here I was, watching these kids cling to me with the same desperation. I turned back to the worker. Then I'll do it, whatever you need. Inspections, forms, interviews, I'll fight through it all. But I won't let them get split. Not while I'm breathing. Her pen hovered above the form. She studied me for a long moment before writing something down. The meeting ended with a stack of papers shoved into my hands. My head spun with deadlines and requirements, but my grip on those little hands never loosened. On the walk home, my son nudged me. You really mean it, don't you? You're going to fight for them. I exhaled slowly. Yeah, I don't know how, but yeah. The younger twin whispered, almost afraid to believe it. You won't leave us? I stopped on the sidewalk. My voice came out rougher than I meant. No, I won't leave you. Not ever. The older twin's hand squeezed mine tighter. As we reached our building, I glanced up at the peeling paint, the cracked windows, the tiny space we called home. It wasn't much, but as I looked at the three kids walking beside me, I knew one thing for sure. This house would stretch if it had to, because for the first time since my wife died, I felt something stronger than grief rising in me. Determination. And I wasn't letting go. I thought our apartment would never be enough. Too cramped, too quiet, too heavy with old grief. But the night I promised the twins I wouldn't leave them, something shifted. Days turned into weeks. The silence that once pressed against the walls was gone, replaced by footsteps, laughter, and sometimes shouting when the kids argued over whose turret was to hold a remote. Dad! My son yelled one evening, tugging at my sleeve. They don't even know how to play properly. I'm trying to teach them. The younger twin crossed his arms. I do know. You just cheat. I don't cheat, my son snapped, glaring at him. The older twin sighed, clutching the game controller like it was a fragile treasure. Can we just play together? Please. I leaned against the doorframe, a smile tugging at my lips despite the noise. A month ago, my boy barely spoke at home. Now he argued, laughed, defended himself. He was alive again. Still, nights weren't easy. One night, I heard muffled cries. I pushed the bedroom door open to see the younger twin trembling, clutching his blanket. His brother sat beside him, whispering, "It's okay. I'm here." I sat on the edge of the bed. Bad dream. The boy nodded without meeting my eyes. Want to stay a while? I asked. His small hand crept toward mine, hesitant. When I took it, His body finally relaxed. I stayed until both their breaths evened out, then whispered a prayer I hadn't said since my wife passed. God, don't let me fail them. In the mornings, I taught them small things: how to brush their teeth without flooding the sink, how to fold their blankets, how to whisper a quick prayer before school. My son laughed when a younger twin made faces in the mirror with his toothbrush hanging out of his mouth. You're supposed to brush, not drool all over, he teased. The boy laughed for real then, a sound that filled the tiny bathroom like sunlight. We made our own routines. Instant noodles gave way to rice and beans, cheap but filling. I read them bedtime stories, stumbling over words when the twins giggled at my silly voices. Again, the older twin begged one night. Again, I groaned. This is the third time. Please, he whispered, eyes wide. I sighed, pretending to give in. All right, but tomorrow you read to me. Their laughter carried me through the exhaustion of long shifts. Still, I saw the cracks. Some nights, the older twin sat in silence, staring at the wall. Other times, the younger one refused to eat, pushing his bowl away with trembling hands. My son noticed too. They're sad again, he whispered once when the twins locked themselves in the bathroom. Well, they don't like it here. I crouched down to meet his eyes. It's not about liking it here. It's about trusting it's safe. That takes time. He nodded, but his frown lingered. One Saturday afternoon, I caught all three sprawled across the living room floor, building towers out of old cereal boxes. My son shouted, "Don't knock it over!" As the younger twin pretended to sneeze dramatically, the tower collapsed in a heap of cardboard. They laughed so hard I had to grab my phone and take a picture. For a second, I forgot the weight of bills and inspections. For a second, we were just family. Later that night, as I tucked them into bed, the older twin whispered, "We didn't laugh like this before." I froze. Before? He looked at me, eyes shimmering. Before the rain. Before we met you. I felt my throat tighten. Well, you'll laugh here. A lot. I promise. He gave the smallest smile, then curled into his brother's side. After they slept, I stood in the doorway, watching. My heart ached, but not from grief, from something gentler, healing. I found myself smiling more these days, crying less. The house felt alive again, messy, loud, and sometimes too crowded, but alive. And just when I thought maybe, just maybe, we could keep this rhythm, life reminded me nothing stays safe for long. It was a Tuesday evening when the knock came. Hard, sharp. My son looked up from his homework, frowning. The twins froze on the couch, eyes wide, fear flashing across their faces. "Dad," the younger one whispered, his voice trembling, "what if it's them?" I swallowed hard and forced my legs to move. The shadows of their past had found our door. The knock rattled the door again, harder this time. My heart pounded as I stepped closer, every instinct screaming at me to send whoever was away. When I opened it, the hallway light revealed a man leaning against a frame. His clothes were stained, his eyes bloodshot, his breath sharp with alcohol. "I'm here for my kids," he slurred, though his tone carried more anger than love. Behind me, I heard the shuffle of small feet. The twins froze near the couch, their faces drained of color. The older one whispered, barely audible, "Dad," but it didn't sound like hope. It sounded like fear. I stood firm in the doorway. "Who are you?" He pushed past my question. "Their father. You've got something that belongs to me." The twins clung to each other, their eyes darting between me and him. My chest tightened. I forced my voice steady. "They're not things. They're children." He scoffed. "And they're mine. I messed up before, all right? But I'm ready now. I can take care of them." The younger twin shook his head, tears spilling. "No, please, no." His words hit me like a knife. I turned back to the man. "Do you hear them? They don't want this." His jaw clenched. "They're kids. They don't know what's best. I do. I'm their blood." Blood. That word burned. I remembered standing in a hospital years ago, holding my son while my wife's body went cold in the next room. Blood hadn't saved me from that night. Love had carried me through one broken step at a time. I lower my voice. Blood doesn't mean a damn thing if you're the one who left them out in the rain. His face twisted. He stepped forward, but the twins cried out, clutching my arm. Stay back, I said sharply. My hands trembled, but I didn't move aside. My son's voice broke the tension. They don't want you. Can't you see that? The man looked past me, eyes narrowing. You think you can replace me? You? A washed-up single dad in a shoebox apartment. His words cut deep, but the grip of two small hands on my sleeve anchored me. The older twin's voice shook, but he spoke up. We want to stay here. With him. Silence. Heavy, trembling silence. The man blinked, his expression cracking for a moment. He looked at them, then at me, then back again. His lips parted like he wanted to argue, but no words came. I could see it then. The truth he didn't want to face. They weren't reaching for him. They weren't begging for his arms. They were hiding behind me. Finally, he muttered, You'll regret this, and staggered back into the hallway. The door slammed, leaving the echo of his anger hanging in the air. The twins collapsed into me, their small bodies shaking. It's okay, I whispered, wrapping them in my arms. You're safe. He's gone. But inside, my chest was burning. Safe for now wasn't safe forever. If he came back sober, with lawyers, with proof of blood, I kissed the top of their damp hair and swallowed hard. No, I won't lose them. Not like this. My son tugged at my sleeve. Dad, what if he tries again? I looked at all three of them, my boy, and the two who weren't mine by blood but were already stitched into my soul. Then we fight. I said, my voice low but steady. We fight for this family. And I knew that this moment, this line drawn in the doorway, wasn't the end of the storm. It was only the beginning. We fight for this family. That was the vow I made the night he stood at our door. I didn't know then just how much fight it would take. The weeks after blurred into lawyers, courtrooms, stacks of papers with words I barely understood. Each night, I came home drained, my shirt smelling of sweat and old coffee, my head pounding from arguments I wasn't sure I'd won. The twins watched me carefully. Like any wrong move meant I might disappear too. My son sat close every evening, handing me water, asking quietly, Is it almost over? I wished I could say yes. One night, the older twin whispered as I tucked him in, What if the judge sends us back? The younger one turned his face into the pillow, shoulders trembling, my throat closed. Listen to me, I said softly, sitting on the edge of the bed. I don't know what the judge will say tomorrow or the day after, but I promise you this. I'm not letting go of your hands. Not ever. The older one reached for me, his fingers wrapping around mine. Even if it's our blood? Especially then, I whispered. The courtroom smelled like old wood and nerves. I sat stiff in a too-small chair, the twins' father glaring from across the room. He was cleaner this time, his shirt pressed, his hair combed, like a man trying to cover cracks with paint. His lawyer stood tall, words sharp. Biological rights, rehabilitation, the chance to reunite a family. Every phrase stabbed at me. When my turn came, my lawyer nudged me forward. I cleared my throat, my palms slick with sweat. I don't have much. I admitted. A one-bedroom apartment, long shifts, bills that scare me every month. But I have love. I have a son who calls those kids his brother and sister. I have a home where they laugh again. And I can promise you this. If you send them back to a man who left them in the rain, they'll lose that laughter. Maybe forever. The judge's gaze was steady, unreadable. I sat down shaking, wondering if my words were enough. During recess, I crouched beside the twins in the hallway. They clung to me, wide-eyed. My son leaned against my side, whispering, You did good, Dad. I forced a smile, though inside I was breaking. The decision didn't come fast. Weeks stretched, each day a tug-of-war between hope and fear. The twins' father stopped showing up for visits halfway through the hearings, excuses piling up like his past. Then, one gray morning, the call came. The court has granted you custody. I sat frozen on the edge of the bed, the phone pressed to my ear. The words echoed. Granted custody. When I hung up, the room spun. My chest shook with sob I didn't expect. Relief, so heavy it broke something loose inside me. I stumbled into the kitchen where the kids sat eating cereal. They looked up, spoons pausing midair. "Well," my son asked. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. "You're staying. All of you. With me. For good." The twin spoons clattered into bowls. The younger one jumped off his chair and threw himself into my arms, sobbing into my shirt. The older followed, wrapping both arms around my waist. My son grinned, tears in his eyes as he joined the pile. We clung to each other in that messy kitchen, the cereal turning soggy, the world outside forgotten. That afternoon, the sky opened up. Rain poured heavy against the windows, thunder rolling in the distance. I remember that first night, the broken bus stop, the shivering bodies, the hollow ache in my chest. Back then, rain meant sorrow, endings. Now it felt like renewal. I knelt in the living room, all 3 kids in front of me, the storm rumbling above us. My hands shook as I pulled them close. "No more goodbyes," I said, my voice rough. "You're mine and I'm yours. That's the end of it." The younger twin sniffled. "Forever? Forever?" I whispered, pressing my forehead against his. The older one's hand slipped into mine, firm. My son leaned against my shoulder, smiling through tears. I looked at their faces. My son, my boys, not blood, not bound by law until now, but stitched into me deeper than anything else. For years, I carried grief like a chain. I thought my life had ended the day I lost my wife. But as thunder rolled and the rain kept falling, I finally understood my story hadn't ended. It had been waiting for them. I wasn't just a man surviving anymore. I was their father, the father I was meant to be,